Put down that remote, set your phaser to stun, and pick up that paperback.
You do have books in the 24th century.
Welcome to episode 18 of Reading Trek, a Star Trek book club podcast and proud member of the Tricorder Transmissions podcast network. My name is Marty, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Christian. Christian, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm a little under the weather, actually, but I'm surviving. I'm not sick enough to miss work, and this is kind of like work, so way more fun.
This is more fun than work.
We also have a special guest joining us today, as we do for all of our Discovery novels. It is our own Tricorder Transmissions disco guru, Heather Barker. Heather, how are you?
Disco guru. Okay, I didn't need to sing it. I don't know why I sang it, but obviously I'm in a good mood. I actually had like a really bad mental health day, and the fact that I get to sit down and talk about this amazing book is like the best thing ever, and I'm already much happier than I was earlier. So yay.
I think Tilly is some of the best medicine you can have.
Oh my God. Okay, can we quote that? Like, we need to tweet that out or something, because I agree so much. So much.
Episode title right there. Way to go.
Yes, I like it.
All right. For those who are new to the podcast, we are a book club podcast working our way through the Star Trek expanded universe, one novel at a time, discussing the character's plot and writing, while piecing it together into the larger Trek universe as we pull out the meanings and messages of the text. Although we do encourage you to read along with us, the show was designed to give all Trek fans a way to journey through the EU together, even if you haven't read the books. If you haven't figured it out by now, we are talking about Star Trek Discovery, The Way to the Stars by Una McCormack. And before we dive into the novel, let's let everyone know how they can get a hold of the show. You can find us on Twitter at ReadingTrek, online at readingtrek.thetricordertransmissions.com, by email at readingtrekpodcast@gmail.com, and you can like our page on Facebook. We also have a Patreon page if you'd like to support the Tricorder Transmissions. For as little as $1 a month, patrons of the Tricorder Transmissions gain exclusive early access to some of our unedited shows, interviews, and even get to join in on exclusive Patreon-only chats. We have lots more Patreon content on the way that you won't want to miss, so visit patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions, and be sure to mention that Reading Trek sent you. There's one segment that I keep forgetting to do, and I always really want to do, and it's the info about the author of the book. So Una McCormack started her Star Trek writing career with fan fiction focus on Cassandra, inspired by the events of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It was these stories that brought her attention to the editors at Pocket Books, leading to her pitch for Hollow Men. McCormack has also written several Doctor Who novels and audio adventures, as well as Weird Space, a shared world science fiction series started by Eric Brown. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and get right into the summary of the novel. So Black Alert, spoilers are ahead for The Way to the Stars.
Black Alert. Black Alert.
Sylvia Tilly lives with Grana Adele and stepfather Gabriel Quinn in Paris. Her mother, Siobhan, is a rising member of the Federation Security Council with little time but grand plans for her daughter. Her divorced father, Lieutenant Ian Tilly, is often out of contact on a year-long xenoarchaeology mission aboard the USS Dorothy Garrod. Sylvia's grades in math and science are exceptional, and her recent paper on astromycology, a favorite hobby, received top marks. But nothing is ever good enough for her mother. Siobhan always favors criticism over praise, and she decrees Sylvia's interests and other less than perfect but still good grades rather than wishing her daughter a happy birthday. Siobhan treats Sylvia to a day trip to London, though she again overrides Sylvia's interests with her own, clothes shopping and the beauty salon rather than museums and the theater. She also declares that Sylvia will be sent to a prestigious boarding school on Talaris 4 to prepare for her career in the diplomatic corps. Sylvia's objections to both the off-world school and choice of career go completely ignored. Sylvia's grandparents escort her on the week-long journey to Talaris. Siobhan's schedule is too full for her to get away. Her roommate at the school, Rizera, is friendly and welcoming, though also somewhat messy. Sylvia begins going by the name Tilly and adjusts well to her new environments, earning good grades and joining an Araxian rowing team. Unhappy with the school's woefully small STEM program and seeking like-minded friends, she starts an engineering club and impresses other students with her practical knowledge of technology. During the midterm holidays, she sadly finds Rosera's visiting family to be more interested in networking with Shaban than in befriending Tilly herself. She is also instructed by her mother to drop her ridiculous extracurricular activities in favor of perfecting her already remarkable grades. Shaban is later convinced to relent and allow a single club. Tilly drops engineering rather than rowing. The remainder of the school team is made more stressful with preparations for a mock summit. Each student must conduct a presentation on a Federation member world, complete with native dress and language. After exhaustive research, Tilly chose the little-known Elishirians, who speak in a melodic quadratic equations. She pours herself into the presentation, intent on perfect grades, while also studying for final exams in each of her regular classes. Overstressed and exhibiting the worst of her mother's personality traits, she alienates her friends, drives Rosera out of the room, comes in second place in a rowing race, and flubs her presentation. Having failed so spectacularly, she vows that she's done with the school. Using the end-of-term student exodus and her own technical genius to hack the school's security system, Tilly runs away. Though without a real plan in place, using a fake ID, she boards a transport vessel en route out of the Federation. Tilly's disappearance, especially with regard to her mother's status, is initially feared as kidnapping and scrambles Federation and local security across several worlds. On her first day on the Lamb, her naivete results in the theft of her luggage and ID. Unable to debark at the next port without being discovered and unwilling to give up immediately, she hides aboard the ship. Hunger and boredom soon get the better of her. She ventures out of her cabin to steal food and effects several small ship repairs aboard the dilapidated ship, exposing her to the ship's engineer, Sala. Tilly's self-righteous teenage attitude does not go far with the captain of the ship, but Sala finds it both amusing and familiar, and she stands up for Tilly. The captain agrees to let Tilly off at the next port, having her pay her passage as Sala's apprentice. Along with her formidable technical skills, Sala shares her history, having fled a long war on her homeworld at Tilly's age, helping the young woman put her own life and problems into perspective. Through this adventure lasts only a few days, Tilly learns a lot before she is put off the ship at the rough world of Zamin. The authorities of the resource-poor planet insist that Tilly, under the alias of Zoe Trace, prove her worth in order to remain on Zamin. Emboldened by her minor successes with Sala and soothed by working with her hands, she offers to repair any broken equipment they have. Her quick work impresses the friendly officers who offer to set up with a lodging and a day job. Though they question why a privileged Federation girl would want to stay on this backwater planet, her promising fresh start is short-lived as Adele and Quinn track her down, followed soon by Ian. Simultaneously relieved and irate, they recognize how desperate Tilly must have been to run away, how unattainable the current arrangement is, and all three adults support her when she faces her mother. They confront Siobhan about her emotional bullying and inability to listen, prompting her to stand down. Ian convinces the captain to allow Tilly to remain aboard the Dorothy Garrett with him. Though annoyed at having her ship pulled off its schedule to receive Tilly, Captain Holden recognizes the girl's abilities and fosters a productive environment for her, setting her up with an unofficial apprenticeship in engineering. To her delight, Tilly finds that she finally fits in on the ship of intelligent eccentrics and enjoys quality time with her loving, reasonable father. She reevaluates her poor opinions of Starfleet, coming to terms with its part, her father's long absence, though she also comes to appreciate the dangers. A shuttle accident threatens Ian's life, though everything works out in the end and the pair grow even closer. Ian helps Tilly to see her mother as a person rather than a superhuman, and that the divorce had nothing to do with Tilly. Her parents were just too different to remain together. Later, Tilly nags her father and Holden to allow her to join the archaeological survey on Vesnoy. The landing party discovers that the seemingly abandoned world is still inhabited as an alien form screams at them, and the ground swallows up the team. Tilly alone escapes via emergency transport. Aboard the ship, the crew works to figure out what the next move will be when Tilly recognizes similarities between the alien screams and the musical Elisurian language. She tweaks the universal translator to allow for such alien communication and convinces Captain Holden to let her return to the planet, effectively making first contact on her own. Greatly impressed, Holden offers to let Tilly remain aboard longer than planned, with a specialized education plan and Holden's endorsement to attend Starfleet Academy. Siobhan explodes, refusing to further indulge any of Sylvia's nonsense and reverting to her attitude of total control. With Ian's support, Tilly refuses, insisting that she's not going to become a diplomat. She accepts Holden's offer without Siobhan's blessing, finally seizing her own future. The end. So what are our first thoughts on the novel? Heather, you're the guest. Let's start with you.
Oh, this is now my favorite Discovery novel. I'm going to hug it right now. And I refuse to believe that it's not canon. For everyone out there looking for true character deep dives, this is really it.
Yeah.
And I think it is imperative that if you watch Discovery, you read this book. My heart broke for Tilly so much in this book and what she went through, not just because of having this horrid relationship with her mother where she feels so much pressure and her mother bullies her, but just the struggle with self-esteem and self-loathing. And the great thing is that in this book she really overcomes that in a way. I mean, I think none of us truly overcome being a little self-conscious about certain things and fighting those types of demons. But she came a long way. She started off this book doubting herself, and by the end of it, she's pretty much saved the day and come into her own. But I don't even know when to shut up, because there's just so much good stuff. But I will say three quick things. This is the most woman-centric Star Trek thing I think I've ever witnessed.
Christian and Marty not in agreement. Yes. Yeah.
It is a story about a girl who is the book starts with Burnham and Tilly. So there is a direct Discovery tie-in. So it's Tilly telling her story. And so it's a woman telling her story of a coming-of-age story, in a way. It has, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other main women characters.
Yeah, there were a lot.
And
which is great.
Yeah, I feel like some of this I should save for the end, but whatever, it'll come up again, I'm sure. To me, this is a story about women lifting up women, and that is just monumental. And I have not read a lot of Star Trek books, so I don't know if there are others that are comparable. But because of that, this was super meaningful to me as a woman. Second point is Tilly Spock. We've had this conversation about Discovery, especially on Disco Trek, with the other, and how we're always
kind
looking
of a misfit. Yeah,
we're always looking for the other, the Spock. And I've said about Discovery that I think all of the characters are the outcast, the misfit, the Spock type character. But this book just really highlighted how much Tilly represents us all. I feel like these insecurities and these struggles are things that we can all identify with, and that there are things that happen when we're teenagers.
Yeah.
And we all struggle with that. And having said that, my final point is that I think this is the only Star Trek book I've read that is truly accessible and appealing to a young adult audience.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah, I mean, she's 16 during the majority of this book, and there's nothing in it that would be inappropriate for a 16-year-old to read. So, don't just go hand it to I don't know, maybe you could hand it to a kid that doesn't know anything about Star Trek. Like, it's still a fun book. I don't know if you need to know Tilly or not. I need to find someone and ask, but I just thought it was really great that this coming of age book will be great for coming of age Star Trek fans, whether it be our young men or women or however you identify. It's for everyone, and I love it. And I'll be quiet now.
Christian, what are your first thoughts?
So I can totally second your opinion on it being a young adult novel, because that's what you felt pretty much for the first probably 3/4 of the book. And having read myself, I should really count one day, but I'm going to say it's at least 300 Star Trek novels in my lifetime right now.
You should see the huge pile of Star Trek novels he's given me, because he has more than one copy of them.
That's the best kind of friend, right?
And, Heather, I can mail you a few too.
Yeah.
But it was accessible to, not, and I agree with you that it would be accessible to someone who didn't know Star Trek, because the first half of the novel wasn't Star Trek centric.
Mm-hmm.
You're at a boarding school for the good majority of that first half of the book.
I thought it was going to be Space Harry Potter because of the boarding school.
It's funny you should mention that. Oh gosh, let me find my quote. There probably wouldn't be all that much in the way of wizards either.
Yeah, I caught that too, and it's really funny.
And also for Una, I've read a few of her books, and I think this is the first Deep Space Nine book I've read, but this is the first one that I can really see her British heritage, if you could call it that, in the writing, with terms like washing up, especially the washing up term was sticking out to me quite a bit.
And Tilly's grandmother was from Paris, and Ian is Scottish.
I think Siobhan, when I looked it up, is an Irish name. Originates.
And then the Captain Holden is Australian. So there's lots of.
Those are just the humans.
Those are just the humans. Oh, yeah. I agree with everything that both of you have said so far. I thought it could have been a great, Star Trek young adult novel. I thought it was different from any Star Trek novel I've read so far, not in a bad way, but there's no phasers firing all over the place. There's no ship battles. There's nothing that
it was
think of Star Trek, they think of those things, but it's really a great character piece.
Yeah.
Thoughtful, touching, moving. It gave us everything we wanted to know about Sylvia Tilly and then some.
It was kind of, to equate it to another Star Trek adventure, it was kind of like The Voyage Home in that sense, in that there was no violence in that. There was really no high stakes danger in that either. Well, except for the Earth being destroyed, but.
Well, Christian, do you want to move us into some of the characters? Do you have any that you specifically want to highlight?
I highlighted a few. I think we should probably talk about all of the family members. Something with Tilly herself. I know there was a lot of talk when Discovery first came out that Tilly might be on the autism spectrum. And I think that was more of the viewers and not what we were getting from producers and whatnot. And so I was kind of looking for that in the novel myself, because I think this is probably the most backstory that we're probably ever going to get about Tilly, because with the way Discovery is in production, I don't think we're really going to see much in the way of backstory of characters, and except for Michael Burnham, and maybe Spock, but at least so far. So there was nothing about the spectrum in there, but that feeling of having nobody on your side, which is what Tilly felt for her entire life. And I think the three of us can all relate to that. And I think that the viewership and the readership could relate to that as well.
Yeah.
I think that the one person who really saw her for who she was deep down was Quinn. Even her grandmother, as much as she loved her, I think that her grandmother had so many unresolved issues with her own daughter that she couldn't devote everything she should have to Tilly.
Yeah, that's so true. All these characters are all so incredibly complex. Like each one of them has their own. I would love to get a look at Una's notes for this novel and just see like how far out she maps the novel.
You need to
know,
reach out for an interview.
I know. I need to.
I bet she'll do it, hopefully.
She probably would. I just have to ask. But yeah, I'll add that to the list of things to ask her.
Yeah, the world building, the character building in this was just, it's kind of mind-blowing to think, like, I could not put it down. I've never been so engaged. And I mean, the other books, and no discredit to any of the other authors, because I've loved all of the other books, and I've read them all quickly, but this one just blew me away. And I mean, all of these people, with the exception of her mother, are people that I would want in my life. And we've had, like, I have these people in my life in some respect. I have teachers that looked out for me when I was in high school. I have a great stepfather who, he's been my stepdad since I was 4, and he's my dad now. Or he's been in my life since I was 4, but he's a similar type of character to Quinn. And it just, I don't know. They're all super awesome.
Well, since we're talking about her family, why don't we talk about? Let's just get it out of the way and talk about Siobhan. I think we all have like pretty not so nice things to say about Siobhan. And she appeared briefly in the Short Treks episode as well, but we only got to see her backside, correct?
Yeah.
I only watched that Short Trek once because I was not the biggest fan of it.
Yeah, I don't think we really saw, we saw maybe a profile. I got some Loxana Troy vibes from her, just in the way the character was dressed and everything, but she was pretty much the same, like what you would expect from this. And so at some point, the book ends and there's still tension between the two of them. And so, over a lifetime, who knows? It doesn't seem like they've really mended the relationship to be healthy, since in Runaway, Tilly's, screaming into her pillow. And through the season 1 of Discovery, she's making comments about what her mom would say about her hair and everything else. I'm just really happy that I have a great relationship with my mother. I know others who have relationships like Tilly has with her mother, and because I believe in giving people the benefit of the doubt, I try to look for the redeeming things about Siobhan. And I think she loves her daughter. I
do think she loves her daughter, yes.
Yeah, she
misses the mark a little bit, like a lot bit.
Yeah. I'm very glad that Grandma Adele is in Tilly's life, because what a difficult relationship. I can't imagine.
It's funny. I think Siobhan was the one character I wrote the least about, just because I think that she was someone that we were written to dislike. And I think that she's someone that the show has kind of built us up to dislike.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm focusing on the positives these days. I don't know.
I wrote, my only note for Siobhan is kind of hate her. So
I mean, she is a quintessential bully.
Yeah.
To have your mother be that bully.
She's the villain of the story.
She really
Mhm.
is. And one of my very best friends actually has a similar terrible relationship with her mother, and it is a horrid thing to witness as a friend. Um I just but I think that ultimately, like, having this character who is a bully will help a lot of people just relate to the having been bullied in life, and knowing that feeling, I guess, is really what it is, and seeing how being treated that way by her mother has bred this self-doubt and self-loathing in her. Like, the very one of the very first paragraph, she's talking about her stupid curls. And even in that first paragraph, like, my heart just broke because I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, look at that fat roll on your stomach. Like, I have the same type of insecurities. And I mean, that's not necessarily from my mother at all, but I guarantee you, if I don't eat enough food or I say I didn't have dinner, I hear about it from my mother. Uh, and vice versa. So, like, I understand what it's like to have that relationship. And just for anyone who's been bullied in their life, I think that it resonates, and you automatically dislike her because you've been there and you know how horrible it is.
One of the first things I highlighted in this book was the important thing was not to get swamped, not to let her mother's reasoning make what she wanted seem childish, petty, unreasonable. It wasn't unreasonable to want to live with Grana. It wasn't unreasonable to want to be herself.
Self-awareness,
Yeah.
which very, very good to have as a 16-year-old, because a lot of us didn't have that when we were that young. I was just going to say, then you have her dad, who's sort of the opposite,
The complete opposite.
but well, he really, they're both detached. I mean, that's part of the
Yeah.
thing, and
Yeah.
that was a part of the storyline, is that her parents got divorced and she blames herself because she doesn't know why it happened. Um, my biological dad left before I was even born, so I didn't really experience that. My mom said when I was really small that, like, I would say my dad was going to come on a white horse and save me, or some ridiculous BS. Uh, and I don't remember any of that. So I'm happy that, as a child of divorce, I don't know what this is, but I know that this is a very common theme with children of divorce. And thankfully we get the closure at the very end with her dad saying, no, it wasn't you at all. And admitting that even he wasn't a great parent, because he thought she'd be fine with her mother, and that was wrong. She's not him. She can't affect her mother in that way. But because of her dad, she's able to learn to stand up, even when it doesn't really work at the end. She at least comes into her own and is able to do that and say no. And again, that's like with standing up to a bully. I think that parallel can be had whether it's a parent or someone at school or work or whatever.
Yeah. Totally agree there. I And again, I think this is why this book might be so relatable to like young adult audience, because a lot of like young adults, their parents are splitting up, they think it's their fault, all that stuff. So I think it's very grounded in reality, because this is what a lot of people go through. It's what I went through when I was growing up. My parents split up like when I was in junior high school. So,
Mm.
Since we're sharing, I was 3.
oh,
And so, I mean, I can totally relate to the absent father bit. I think that it was convenient that communications were not always available in the book, which is something that we don't usually see in Star Trek. It's like,
yeah.
how to find the good signal or whatnot.
Yeah.
But
We
And
also
that was,
don't,
go ahead.
we also don't usually see like insides of schools and all
yeah,
that stuff in Star Trek. So
I mean,
Just-
like, hello, Starfleet Academy. Like, it's not, but
yeah,
still, like,
basically.
excuse me, you can kind of see how testing the waters with this book. I mean, we don't know a whole lot about what Lower Decks is going to be like, but something maybe similar. I don't know. I think there's an audience for stuff like that, whether that is young adult viewers, readers, etc., or just anyone who likes Star Trek. It was really, really fascinating. I love that wizard comment. Sorry. Ah,
Who should we talk about next?
Let's talk about okay. Is it Ricera?
It's Ricera. That's how the audiobook narrator pronounced it.
that's why. So, okay, I'm going to interrupt because I think it's important to point out that Marty listened to the audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
I read the physical book, and Christian
I read the Kindle.
Read the Kindle. So we consume the book in all medias.
Guess which one of the three of us has the least amount of quotes? The audiobook guy, because I couldn't highlight anything.
The thing with the roommate, like this, it resonated with me so strongly, and it made me think about how excited she is to have Michael Burnham as a roommate.
Yes.
Because this was, living with someone was a struggle. And again, we have a character that just really wants to fit in. So, she's obviously feels like an outcast. She feels like she doesn't belong. She feels like she never does anything right and that she always disappoints someone. So she's super excited to meet Rosera, and they settle in. And then you kind of realize after a while, like, things are not so great living with someone else who, may not.
It's a big adjustment if you've never done it before.
Guess what? Because I just moved in with my partner a month or so ago, and I'm really neat, and he's messy.
So you got the same kind of thing going on when you were reading this.
I do, and I also. So I am not OCD, but I definitely. I say it's more like a control thing where. Like being able to clean and take control of your surroundings kind of centers you. So that scene where she's going through, like, first she has a panic attack.
They didn't call it that, but that's what it was.
Right.
That's what I took it as.
Yeah, they didn't call it out as one, but that totally it was a panic attack. So again, something I can relate to. And then it just goes on this like cleaning and organization rampage, and then winds up like throwing the stuff that she can't clean just like on her bed,
on her roommate's bed.
Yeah,
all her roommate stuff.
And Rosera walks in and it's just like, what? Which totally explainable, but guys, like, I literally did this weekend. Like, I cleaned the apartment, and then I took my partner's clothes that were all over the floor and just put them in a pile in the corner. Thankfully he didn't flip out, but that just resonated so strongly with me. And I also understood where Rosera was coming from with, processing this behavior, because that this behavior is just a little bit much. And as we saw, another common theme was like, Tilly, chill out, get outside, take some time to calm down, settle down, relax, to prevent this stuff. So I was really happy that despite the weird thing with the parents visiting and really just wanting to spend time with Tilly to get to her mother, and even like saying that Tilly was odd when she went to the bathroom or whatever, I was glad to see that in the end, like, they were still able to maintain that friendship, because I think Rosera was truly a good person and a good friend.
Yeah, I think I'm glad that they got together at the end of the novel, because I do think Rosera genuinely liked Tilly, and they just had a fight.
Huh?
Tilly didn't know how to resolve it, so she just kind of freaked out. And I can understand that, because I've been there. This is behavior that I do all the time. I think someone's mad at me and I freak out and I don't know what to do, and I just make the whole and then it explodes, it's just a thing. But so that whole situation resonated with me a lot. But I'm really happy they had dinner at the end of the novel.
Yeah.
It didn't go where I thought it was going to go. Before she ran away, I thought it was going to turn into Mean Girls in Star Trek.
Oh no, my God.
So we have one for Harry Potter in space and one for Mean Girls in space.
And also another fandom that it reminded me of, and I know Marty, I know you haven't watched Buffy before. Heather, have you watched Buffy?
I've watched like the first season of it. Sorry, everyone.
This reminds me of when she first goes to college, and they have this one episode that's all based around her and her roommate, and it's just like this whole situation is hilarious. You should watch it.
I will. I gotta dive back in. She's still in high school where I'm at, because it's. I don't even think I finished the first season. Sorry, guys.
Tangent really quick. When we were bringing Christian on to Reading Trek, he wanted to be credited as special guest star forever, like Heather Locklear.
I love it.
Yeah, the readers can't hear me or see me flipping my hair.
What was I going to say? Like, yeah, Rosera was like the gateway friend. And again, we know like it was so important for Tilly to have friends that she even gave up the engineering club that she created.
Spend time with Rosera and her friends.
Yeah, to do so I guess technically
because she couldn't let them down.
Yeah, well, and she's like the captain / drummer of the rowing team.
Yeah.
And it was more important to be there and to be part of that. But even there, like you see the struggle. And I'm really glad that the girls in the book did not turn into mean girls. Like they were weirded out by Tilly's behavior because they just did not understand it. But they didn't turn around and start bullying her, which was excellent because Lord knows that's what happens in school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think having that strong friendship really kind of paved the way to show like how important it is for Tilly to have that and why she values it so much with Burnham and even with Poe in the short trek.
Yeah.
In Runaway, Poe was younger. She was 17. And
I find it funny, really quick, that the short trek is called Runaway, and in this novel, Tilly runs away.
Yes.
So,
I have that note in here. I noticed that. I was like, holy potatoes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a weird expression.
That was one of the big
connections
that I made.
Yeah. Oh, oops. Spoiler.
Spoiler of what?
Oh, well.
That it connected to Runaway in that way. But yeah, it's just really cool to have this deep dive and see Tilly work her way into being a leader. And like she's getting there. Even in Discovery Now, like she's still awkward Tilly, but she's captain material. Like she's on her way, and all of these things help
getting
that.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
Spoilers for the first episode of season 2, but she's starting to take the lead on projects now. So
she's
I'm just glad she didn't break a captain's pinky.
Yeah, and I just have to say, like at this point, if people watch the episode and listen, like everyone has a right to their opinion. Let me say that first. But I've seen a lot of criticism about Tilly and Tilly being used as comedic relief, which, I mean, she is.
She's a great character for that, but she's also got all these other facets to her.
Yeah, and so I really encourage, like, people who think she's just comic relief or who don't really connect with her, read this book, please, because if you're a human being, you will identify with so much of what she's experienced and who she is. And I just think it's important because, like, I'm sorry, but if I did meet Anson Mount at STLV, and you know what? I didn't almost break his pinky, but I sure was giddy And like he gave me a card for his podcast, and I was like, oh my god, what is this? And it was like, oh, it's a card for his podcast. Okay, well, whatever. But yeah, like I totally have a crush on him and would be weird and awkward. I think that's super believable, especially with Tilly.
I think that they built up that idea that she was more interested in Tilly's mom, but I think that's something that Tilly got stuck in her head. And I think that that's what she was kind of pushing along until the very end when she realized, wait a second, she is
she
a
was
threat.
projecting onto them, that idea onto them. Yeah.
Yeah.
When that's not at all what it was. All right, let's move on. Are there any other characters in or around the school you wanted to talk about? Miss Keith, perhaps?
Miss Keith reminded me of a nun. She reminded me of like a nun from Sound of Music.
I expected you to relate to Mrs. Keith the most because you're a teacher.
I didn't. I don't know why I didn't.
Yeah. I mean, she was nice, but
She was kind of bland.
yeah, like
she wasn't that bland.
there really wasn't anything remarkable. And like, yeah, she was on Tilly's side, but she didn't really actually do a lot besides just support Tilly to further Tilly's story. Whereas like once she gets on that ship and like Sala, like I thought that character was probably,
she was very interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think she was probably one of the most impactful because, you know, she saw herself in Tilly.
I just love their game of cat and mouse they played the whole time, where like she's trying to figure out Tilly and Tilly's trying to figure out Sala, and it's just
the whole like the transition from the school to the ship, I just love because it reminds me of me. It's you go to school. Like when I was in high school, I was in a medical magnet program because I thought I wanted to go into the medical field. And I do that, and I'm like, this is not what I want to do with my life. No way. And I felt like Tilly kind of had that same experience at the boarding school. She's like, I don't want to be a diplomat. I don't want to do this. And so she went off on this adventure and wound up finding, while she was already interested in engineering, and using her hands on things, she really started to develop expertise and a love for it. And to me, like with what I do now in my current profession, like it came from a lifelong love and passion, but it took me a long time to get there. So I liked that she really fell into becoming an engineer while she was on the ship, and having this older woman, which we don't really get an age, but she's quite a bit older, who's an immigrant refugee. And that was one of the quotes I had saved somewhere, talking about how, you know, they kept expecting the Federation to come and help, but they have a weird thing about a certain directive, which that's not the actual quote, but that's kind of what it is.
non-interference policy,
yeah, something like that. And so you know, her story was really interesting in the way that she just took Tilly under her wing, and despite even eventually knowing who Tilly was, did not out her and let her continue her journey. I thought that Sala by far was more important than Rhea Manus, the captain, or Rhea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how they said it in the audio version. But
and what a visually cool image she gave of Sala, like the purple skin with the black eyes.
That freaks me out.
I mean, I was picturing it, I'm just like, oh, it's a little creepy, but it's at the same time, it's like, that's really cool.
Yeah, I had the
want
same
purple
reaction.
skin. I want to be an X-Man.
But just the black eyes are like a creepy thing. So I don't know how I'd react to seeing
I actually
someone
want
like
purple
that.
hair more than I want purple skin. But.
Yeah, agree.
So I found a quote that talked about kind of what you were touching on, Heather.
Yeah.
With the engineering, it said, there was something so incredibly soothing about routine work like this, something very special about working with your hands. So much of what they did at school was so, well, cerebral. She didn't mean that she struggled, far from that, but their studies often tended to be conceptual. Languages, strategy, tactics, political theories, that was all very well. But Tilly was of the opinion that there wasn't enough working with your hands. There wasn't enough working out problems through your body. And that meant that you got disconnected from the world. Something like this, it reminded you that you were connected to something bigger than yourself.
I love that because that also ties in to when she talks about astromycology. There's a quote that said, "This was why she loved astromycology, of course. Everything was connected there." And I don't have it. It was like everything was connected there. I'll just find the actual quote and read it because I kind of shortened it. It's going to take me forever to find the actual quote. So
Yeah, that's my problem all the time.
like I did book like dog ear stuff, but apparently I'm not going to. Oh, everything was connected there. You weren't displaced. You weren't alone.
Mm.
So again, she's having like this communion with the with the tech and fixing things, and I just thought that was so beautiful. Like she's not an engineer on Discovery, but she obviously has a natural talent for all of this. And we shouldn't have to say, oh, look at this strong, intelligent woman character. Like all women are strong and intelligent characters.
Absolutely.
And I hate having to like highlight that when I talk about women in Star Trek, but
I mean, it's kind of a big deal because it hasn't been a thing before like currently, so
yeah, she is. And that's just another reason why I just absolutely adore this character. Like, regardless of whether or not she's on the spectrum, the fact that fans identify with her because they are and she's like them, like that's what's important. She's an outcast, she's an other, so people can identify with her that way. She's been bullied in life, so people can identify with that. She is so extremely intelligent. She loves math and science. She excels at math and science. And still to this day, like, we're getting better with our young girls, but there are still so many messages that say women can't do math and science. And so, like, this character shouldn't just be a Star Trek character. She should be what all young women are reading, and girls. Like,
yeah,
this character should be in front of everyone. It definitely should be in Star Trek, and I'm not surprised that she is, but she deserves so much more than just being tossed aside as comic relief.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope, like, going forward with Discovery, that they give her some real meaty stuff to play with. Like,
Well, I mean, as of season 2, she's going to be looking at the meteorite or like, asteroid.
Asteroid, I think, yeah.
Yeah, the asteroid and the properties that it had. She's doing that science. In addition to having, being in the captain training program. What is it called?
Command training program.
Command training program. And then having these extra duties aboard the ship, like, she's getting there. I have no doubt that this girl's going to be captain someday.
I hope we're around to see it.
I hope so. That's going to be one hell of a captain, and all of these people out there who are other in some way are going to see themselves there.
That's going to be the first Discovery movie. She's going to be a captain.
It better be. I feel bad because I always hijack your show and like go off on.
I don't mind. That's why I invite you on.
I'm sorry.
Maybe I was just feeling lazy, so I invited you.
You're like, Heather will talk the whole time. We don't have to do much.
Kidding, of course, but
no. Yeah, I'm looking like. I don't know. I feel like all these women characters that I mentioned. We have Captain Manus. We have Natalia. Once she gets to the other planet.
I love Natalia, by the way. I know she was not in the novel for very long, but the way she just was just like, hey, like, you look like you could use a friend. Do you want to grab dinner later?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
love that. Love that.
Yep. And again, it's so important to see these women relationships, and it's something that, to be frank, Star Trek hasn't always done a great job of. If you listen to Disco Trek, you've heard me mention the Bechdel-Wallace test before. And that is essentially that you have a scene where two women are having a conversation together, not about men, is when it passes the test. TNG is notorious for having Dr. Crusher and Deanna Troi. They're there together talking. They got their workout clothes on. We're doing our stretches and talking about Riker or something. DS9 did a better job. Voyager's done a better job, but it's really important to see these positive friendships, and that friendship meant a lot to Tilly because it was the first time that she felt someone really saw her for who she was, like, without knowing who she was, like whose daughter she was.
Right. Yeah.
They saw her, and that gave her validation that she truly needed to move on. And then you have Holden, Captain Holden of the
Also a woman. Yes.
Yes, also a woman. And I did not write down, like, I didn't have time to look up the Dorothy.
Dorothy Garrod.
Yeah, I didn't look up who she is. Did any of you?
Christian, did you happen to look that up?
Of Holden?
The
ship.
Oh, I didn't.
Oops. Okay, we'll just take.
I'm just gonna Google search real quick.
While you're looking up that, I wanted to mention something about Natalia. I thought it was important that the relationship with Natalia was not salvaged. I thought it was important that not everything had a nice bow wrapped around it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that made it feel even more real, because there are friendships that come in and out of our lives all the time.
Yeah. And that's important for young people to know. Mm-hmm. And I again, it's just, I really hope that young people read this book, because there's just so much for them to relate to. And even, like, you know, Tilly finally realizing, oh, what have I done? Like, this was great, and I loved going on my adventure and what it taught me, but it probably wasn't the smartest thing ever. And it was good that they kind of pointed that out, because, you know, we all did dumb stuff as kids. It's part of life. So I think that lesson is good too.
Dorothy Garrod was one of the very few women students at Cambridge in 1913.
Oh, so there's a UK thing.
She graduated with a degree in history and then went to Malta and took an interest in local antiquities. So kind of like an archaeology type.
Very cool
thing.
So when you get Miss Una McCormack on to interview, ask her why she picked that ship. I mean, obviously I see the UK connection there. But yeah, I meant to look that up and just.
I did too.
Didn't get to.
Was Uma an alumni of Cambridge?
I believe so.
Okay.
Let me double check. I fact check myself. We're all about
she
keeping
lives
the
in
facts
Cambridge.
correct here on Tricorder Transmissions.
Yep, it just says she lives there.
Okay.
She lives in Cambridge. Yeah, that's what I read.
Sorry, I got sidetracked reading the acknowledgments at the end of the book.
I didn't read that.
Yeah, she thanks Kirsten Beyer, Margaret Clark. Why am I saying these names all wrong? John Van Sitters. She thanks as ever to fellow author James Swallow for being such a mensch. Mary Wiseman, and then her daughter and husband. But anyway, tangent. So yeah, you know, we get Holden, who I think just saw that Tilly had potential and gave her the opportunity to remain on the ship with her dad. And so, you know, just again, it's a story of women lifting other women, seeing the potential in other women, seeing themselves in other women. and Siobhan wasn't
Yeah.
one of those women. But but it was such a meaningful story because of that.
And Holden
really
also
was.
gave Tilly the view that Starfleet wasn't quite as uptight as she thought that it was, because
Yeah.
you would see her out of uniform. She would see her kind of cutting around with her crew members. And
That brings me to a quote I have highlighted, actually.
Ooh,
Thank you
of
for
course.
the lovely segue. But Starfleet, Tilly couldn't help but laugh to herself. She'd always been so suspicious in the past, but it hadn't been what she'd expected, not at all. Holden, laid back and approachable, but sharp as nails and nobody's fool. Her friends in engineering, who had welcomed her and trained her and been prepared to listen to her not because of her mom or even her dad, whom they really liked, but because she, Tilly, had something worth listening to. This whole ship working together, not just during a crisis, although they excelled in that, but in the everyday support they gave one another, the interest they took in one another's lives and work, a big high school science club, but populated by adults, the best of all possible worlds. Against all the odds, she found, well, her tribe, her team. She'd always been the odd one out at school, but now she was starting to see that it didn't have to be that way. She didn't have to be alone.
So this is what I love, is that she's now in a place where she has her preferred parental unit. Someone who listens to her and encourages her to speak her mind and to stand up against the bully. She has a career mentor on the ship. She has friends that she feels comfortable with, that she feels like she belongs with. And all those things work together for when the time comes and she's saying, I can help, I can do this. And even the captain is like, no, this isn't safe for you. No. And the engineering team's like, nope, you can't do this. Tilly's like, listen to me. I can help. I can do this. And she saves the day. She goes
And
back
makes first
to
contact.
yeah, it's all on her. She uses what she learned about the Elisurians, Lord, and that melodic quadratic equate, which I would love to hear this.
Yeah, I would really love to experience that.
Like, wow,
In Star
super
Trek,
cool.
in the show.
It would be really neat to see how this works, but she makes first contact and she basically saves everyone because her father was in danger, and other members of the crew were in danger. So it's, to me, well, I'm not going to say that like this book ended, wrapped up with the bow. It did teach us like what the perfect storm is, how you get to a place where you can lift someone up and make them comfortable enough and confident enough in themselves that puts them on the right track to move forward. And so because of that, just seeing this whole cycle and Tilly coming into her own and coming into the Tilly that we know and love now, like by the end of this book, I think you get a very good sense of Tilly, because page 270, she says, I'm going to be a captain. Like,
Yeah.
it's there.
Go Tilly. Christian, any thoughts? Anything you want to talk about?
So, how important of a lieutenant is Tilly? Because who else would have an extra room inside their cabin on a starship that could house a child?
Oh, well, I think it was his office.
But
Yeah.
who has that kind of space in a starship?
Yeah, it was, and maybe because, and especially because he was becoming, like, he wasn't a renowned scientist yet,
Okay.
but like Holden saw the potential and she knew he was going to have a breakthrough. And so,
Okay.
I don't know if everybody gets an office, but I
Do we
think,
know what class of ship that Dorothy Garrett was?
no.
I don't think they said that.
Boo.
And was
We
it a
don't know how
science,
big it
like,
was. It could have been a big ship.
and if it was also a science vessel, he may have that
Because
on
he's
there.
one of the lead
Mhm.
archaeologists, so he needs a place to study artifacts, which requires an office.
Yeah. It was really cool that her parents, one was a diplomat and one was a scientist. And she kind of is going to need that to be captain. You know, she doesn't
Gonna
need to
need a little
go.
bit of both, yeah.
Yeah. And she's had that life experience. So she's well on her way. So one of my favorite quotes was towards the end of the book on page 255, where she was talking about Starfleet. And she's like, Starfleet, where else did all the brilliant eccentrics end up if they wanted to make a difference? And again, like, it's just such a theme of this book for me is like, we're all the other and we're all Trekkies. Like, it's just such a common theme among my friends that we all have felt different or other in some way. And Star Trek reached out to us because that's what Star Trek does. It tells us that we have a place to belong. And Tilly is just an ultimate example.
Absolutely. How long have we been going for? About an hour.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to talk about, Heather? Anything we didn't touch on?
Let's see. Going through my notes. Panic attack. Yep. Tilly runs away. Run away. Hacked her tracking device. No, I think we've done a good job of kind of covering everything and inserting our opinions while not quite talking about exactly what happens in the book, but that's okay. Like we did the plot synopsis, like you heard what happened in the book. So
it's not a complicated story. It's just
no.
There's a lot of character development. It's basically the whole book is character development, which is again like unusual for a Star Trek book because usually you have phasers firing and a ship battle and like an actual like monster / villain foil of the week.
All of the books.
Tilly's mom is the foil of the week, and
the Saru book was pretty good character development, but it also had a ton of action.
Yeah, it did. And then the Lorca book was all action.
Yeah, that was kind of like Lorca and Giorgio, and then other crew members. And then the first book was everybody, really. So
even Captain Pike.
Yeah. So
now I'm worried, like, okay, now that we're in season 2, that first book, like, not canon anymore. Like they've already erased that, but
yeah, well, we'll see. I'm not going to talk about fan theories. I'm not doing it this year. Nope.
No, I'm staying away from it.
No fan theories. Yeah, the only other quote I had saved was where she says, it's on page 44, math, that's the real universal language.
The power of math, people.
Yes. I just, I'm not going to just repeat myself the whole time. It's just so important to see a woman who loves math and science. I wish I had that when I was young. Like, I didn't understand that I enjoyed anthropology. Like, I didn't even know the word anthropology until I was in college, and my ex-husband said, "Oh, what you like is anthropology." And I was like, "What?" And like, "Oh." And by that time, I was through like most of college, so I didn't really have time to really make a plan and do field work and stuff like that. So had I had someone like Tilly when I was younger to say it's okay to like math and science and you can be good at math and science, my life may have been different.
I could write a college paper about this book.
Do it.
Just saying. Christian, is there anything else you want to talk about?
I could talk about my other favorite quotes.
Yes.
One of them, and I don't remember who said it, but because I don't have that down, but it says, failure, mistakes, things not going to plan, that's what we learn from, Tilly. I think that sums up a lot of Tilly's misadventures, adventures, and kind of where she goes from here off into Discovery.
Go ahead. I was going to say, like, on the subject of mistakes, since we didn't bring it up, but her project and how terrible.
Oh, yeah.
The headdress.
That was another just hard, like, it was so hard to read that. because I don't have like a specific memory of my own where that happened, but that awful feeling of embarrassment. I mean, I relive it in a mini way every night after I do a podcast where I'm like, oh my God, I said that and that was stupid. But
yeah, but then that's when you trust your editor.
yeah, that is true. That is true. You can't edit it out. But I did like that they had the message there from Miss Keith that no, you did really well. You did more than anyone else here did.
She chose a race of aliens that no one had ever chosen before.
Yep.
But like, I will piggyback off what you said, being like emotional and embarrassed for her. When I would listen to that part of the audiobook, I was walking into work and I had to like pull my earbuds out of my ears because I was like, nope, not doing this before work. Like, oh, so bad. I picked it up on my way home and then cried in the car.
Yeah, I did cry. I don't remember where.
I cried no less than twice.
But this is the only book so far that's made me cry. Runaway, the short trek, made me cry. And
Runaway did not make me cry because
I
don't
know.
like Runaway. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. And then the Saru one made me cry too. But anyway, that's another podcast. What was the other quote that you were going to say, Christian?
This one's more lively. It's when she is found out on the the name of that ship was the
passenger ship.
Con Markivi.
I skipped over that in the recap because it was too complicated.
Okay. So she says, actually, said the kid, I'd quite like to make a complaint because I was traveling quite peacefully, and then somebody stole my bag and stole my ID. And to be honest, I'm not hugely impressed by all this. She folded her arms. What kind of ship are you running here exactly? That to me was so quintessential Mary Wiseman.
Yeah, that sure was.
I really think that 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of ship are you running here anyway?
I think that Uma did such a nice job of getting her voice perfectly in so many of the quotes. And then the very little part that we saw Michael Burnham in the beginning and the end, the
prologue and epilogue,
you could almost see the expression on Burnham's face as she was being talked about and the few lines she had. I really think that she got those characters
spot on. Yeah. I do like that the book started and ended on Discovery.
Yeah.
So it kind of ties it into that world.
And they're just like small, like just a couple
pages. That's
couple pages each. And you have Michael telling her, call your dad, ask your dad.
Don't worry, I won't listen. I'll go sleep.
Get it done. Which, I
do have a question though. So Michael is now commander.
Mm-hmm.
And she still has to share a room with Tilly?
Maybe she wants to. Yeah. They're good friends.
Yeah.
And I think I would again, sorry, spoilers. In the season 2 premiere, like Michael still has time in a room by herself with the really cool candles everywhere that are like hologram things or something. It was awesome.
Like their room. There's 2 beds in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe it's a choice thing, which I get because the friendship that they have is it's something really special. Strong, yeah. It's a friendship, but also a mentorful friendship. Is mentorful a word? I don't think it is.
We're gonna make it a word.
It is now.
I've created that word. Just because Michael just does such a good job. I don't know. I guess I have a similar thing with fencing where there's a teenage girl in our fencing class and she's super shy and awkward. She doesn't listen to this, so I can say that. And I adore her so much. And I know that she gets really uncomfortable having to work with new people and stuff. So I'm I don't know, I reach out to her to be a friend, but then also to help her with the fencing stuff and to say, use a little bit more force when you do this, or just to guide her and help her be better and more comfortable. So everything is so real. Like everything in this book I can apply, like it resonates. I can find somewhere in my life, except for having a terrible mother. But I've definitely had terrible bullies, and definitely terrible women bullies or girl bullies, and it sucks. Yes. Okay.
Well, I'm going to end on a quote by saying, "Praise," she thought. "It costs the giver nothing to say, but it reaped the receiver huge dividends."
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Good stuff.
All right. Anything else we want to say about this book?
Go read it.
Wrap it up.
Buy
Go
it.
read it. Oh, I rate this one Warp 9.5.
Oh, I have to think of something clever to say. I rate this 10 of 10 baby tribbles in the kill zone.
Oh, that's genius. I love that. Christian.
I'll say 10. I'll say 10 spores in the mycelial web out of 10 spores.
I guess that's something we didn't even really talk about a lot, besides like one quote I made is like how she showed an interest in astromycology super early on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was a theme there the whole time. So like all the building blocks are there for the Tilly we know. So
yeah, it was great. I'd have to assume that Una started working on this after season 1 had premiered.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. This book came out on time too, because I've had it pre-ordered and I actually had to cancel it and then reorder it since I moved. Like,
oh yeah, because Amazon doesn't let you change your address.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So dumb. I had a book delivered to an apartment I lived at 2 years ago, 2 apartments ago, because I forgot I pre-ordered it.
Yep.
Well, I'm never getting that book. So
thankfully I remembered, because that happened with another book in the past. And so this came out on time. The autobiography of Mr. Spock has been delayed. Like it was supposed to come out around the same time, I think, and it's
delayed.
Off in the infinite. So Yep. This makes me want to read more of Una McCormack's books, or I would like to see her write a Discovery episode or short track.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
So if I can give my recommendation, The Never-Ending Sacrifice was my favorite of hers.
I will write that down.
It follows the episode, is it Cardassians, I think? It's
okay.
Either first, I think it's second season, Deep Space Nine, about the Cardassian boy who comes aboard.
Yeah.
The O'Briens take him in.
Yeah.
It follows his life after he leaves Deep Space Nine.
The Never-Ending
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
I think I have that in my collection now.
Okay, Marty, read it. Marty, send it to me.
Yeah, for sure.
New book club.
Well, we are definitely not done with Star Trek Discovery novels here on Reading Trek, because they just announced the Enterprise War. Is that what it's called? The Enterprise War, which follows Captain Pike during season 1 of Discovery, when Enterprise was noticeably absent. So we'll get to find out what he was up to. That's coming out this summer, and I'm sure we will have a review episode as well. But until then, next time on Reading Trek, we're going to be covering Star Trek The Next Generation, Metamorphosis by Jean Laura.
That's the book. I know it's a book. The book.
Unexplained gravitational disturbances summon the Enterprise to the planet Elasa and the android Lieutenant Commander Data to a date with destiny. For on this alien world, he will be drawn into an impossible quest, leading him to consequences both heartwarming and disastrous, as he finally dares to pursue his fondest desire, to become human. So you can look forward to that next next month on Reading Trek. But until then, if people want to continue the conversation, Heather, how can they get a hold of you?
You can find me on Twitter. I am at LLAPosper. And if you are a Discovery fan, I actually have an alternate spoilery account because I won't tweet from LLAPosper any spoilers. I don't think that's fair. So I've made a second Twitter, and that's at Oh My Starships. My show is at disco_trek. And since my wonderful co-host for my other show is here, Marty and I have a show called Queer Trek, and it's at Queer Trek Pod. So that's where you can find our shows, as well as the tricordertransmissions.com.
I'm really excited for our next episode too.
Me too, because it's Discovery related.
I just listened. I'm playing catch up with all my podcasts. And I just listened to the latest episode this past weekend. And the first half of it had me in tears. So
yeah, it was a
amazing.
Good episode.
Thank you.
Christian, where can people get a hold of you if they want to continue the conversation?
In the Twitterverse, my handle is at Jewel_05. That's my last name, JUEL_05.
And you can find me on Twitter at Time Travel Marty. And if you'd like to share your thoughts on this week's episode, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us by sending us a tweet at ReadingTrek or by email, readingtrekpodcast@gmail.com. As always, a list of our upcoming selections can be found at readingtrek.thetricordertransmissions.com. And of course, you can find us on Patreon as well if you'd like to support the show that way. But until next time, Captain Picard would like us to let him read in peace.
I will leave you now to your book.
That is all I ask.